Texas Lost Girls, the unsolved case of the Fort Worth Trio, a Christmas mystery. It was just 2 days before Christmas. The air in Fort Worth, Texas buzzed with holiday cheer, shoppers rushing through packed stores, arms laden with last-minute gifts. The scent of cinnamon and pine filled the air and Christmas lights twinkled in storefront windows. 3 girls, 17-year-old Rachel Trlica, 14-year-old Lisa Renee Wilson, and 9-year-old Julie Ann Moseley, set out for a routine shopping trip, slipping into the festive crowds like any other group of teenagers on Christmas break. But before the sun set on December 23, 1974, they would disappear without a trace. Their car, a 1972 Oldsmobile 98, was found abandoned in the upper lot of Sears, its doors locked. There were no signs of struggle, no indication of where they had gone. Their families searched desperately. The police dismissed their fears, and then on Christmas Eve, a letter arrived, allegedly from Rachel, claiming they had run away. But something about that letter wasn't right. Was it truly written by Rachel, or was it a carefully crafted deception? Over the next 5 decades, this case would take shocking turns. Psychic visions, ominous leads, and a private investigator who took secrets to the grave. The girls were reportedly seen with someone before they vanished. Who was this person? Did they go willingly? Were they taken? And now, 50 years later, their families are still searching for answers. Tonight, on Ontario Cold Cases, we take you deep into the chilling mystery of the Fort Worth Trio, one of Texas's most haunting disappearances. Because someone out there, someone knows the truth. Hello, I'm Jay Nichol, Nichol Investigations. This is Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. Ontario Cold Cases is a gripping true crime podcast that shines a light on unsolved murders, disappearances, and forgotten crimes from across the province and the world. With meticulous research, compelling storytelling, and a commitment to historical accuracy, we bring you the real stories of victims, investigators, and suspects, stories that demand to be heard. Each week, we take you deep into the world of true crime with a packed schedule of episodes. Tuesdays, historical true crime cases, exploring infamous and obscure crimes from history. Wednesdays, the Mick and Mac Mysteries, a thrilling fictional detective series set in 1950s Toronto. Thursdays, World Cold Case Thursday, investigating unsolved cases from around the globe. Sundays, Ontario Cold Cases, the latest episode uncovering an unsolved mystery from Ontario. From high-profile crimes that shock the nation to little-known cases waiting for justice, we uncover the truth, one case at a time. Join us as we explore the dark corners of history and mystery, where every clue could lead to answers and every case deserves a second look. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts and never miss an episode of Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. A Christmas Mystery, the vanishing of the Fort Worth Trio. It was 2 days before Christmas in 1974, time of festive cheer and last-minute shopping. But for 3 girls in Fort Worth, Texas, what should have been a routine trip to the mall became one of the most chilling disappearances in the state's history. They stepped into the bustling crowd, arms full of holiday spirit, then vanished without a trace. Not a single clue, no final goodbyes, just silence. The girls. 17-year-old Mary Rachel Trlica, known as Rachel, was a high school senior at Southwest High School. Despite her young age, she was already married to 21-year-old Tommy Trlica and had taken on the role of stepmother to his 2-year-old son, Sean. With a warm heart and a responsible nature, she juggled school, family, and friendships with ease. Rachel, standing 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighing 108 pounds, drove a 1972 Oldsmobile 98, the very car that would become a haunting relic in this unsolved case. 14-year-old Lisa Renee Wilson, who preferred to go by her middle name, was full of youthful excitement. Christmas was particularly special this year. Her boyfriend, Terry Moseley, had just given her a promise ring, token of young love that she proudly wore. Petite yet full of energy, Renee stood at 5 feet 2 inches tall and weighed 110 pounds. She was Rachel's close friend and eager to join her on the shopping trip. Then there was Julie Ann Moseley, just 9 years old, younger sister of Renee's boyfriend. Julie wasn't originally part of the plan, but eager to escape boredom, she begged to tag along. Despite not knowing Rachel well, she was familiar with Renee, and last-minute adventures were always the most exciting. With her youthful enthusiasm, she squeezed in the car that morning, unknowingly stepping into history as the youngest member of Fort Worth's most infamous missing persons case. The 3 girls never returned home. Their gifts were never unwrapped. Their families never heard from them again. The only certainty that remains, a mystery that has endured for nearly half a century, one that still haunts Fort Worth to this day. Up next, a holiday trip that turned to tragedy. A holiday trip that turned to tragedy. The morning of December 23, 1974 was crisp with the excitement of the holiday season. Malls were packed with last-minute shoppers, the scent of pine and cinnamon filled the air, and Christmas lights twinkled over Fort Worth. For Rachel Trlica and Lisa Renee Wilson, it was the perfect day to pick up a few final gifts before the big day. Originally, Renee wanted her boyfriend, Terry Moseley, to come along, but he already had plans with a friend, leaving the shopping trip just the 2 girls. At least that was part of the plan. Enter Julie Ann Moseley. At just 9 years old, she was restless, eager to escape the dullness of the day. Seeing her brother's girlfriend heading out, she jumped at the chance to tag along. Please, please, I promise I won't be any trouble, she pleaded with Renee. Renee wasn't opposed, but there was one hurdle. Julie's mother, Rayanne Moseley. Rayanne hesitated. She didn't know Rachel, and something about sending her young daughter off with an older teenager she'd never met made her uneasy. But Julie was persistent. After much pleading, her mother finally relented, trusting that as long as Renee was there, everything would be fine. With the plan set, Rachel pulled up in her 1972 Oldsmobile 98 just before noon, picking up both girls. Their first stop was a surplus store, where Renee had some items waiting on layaway. Then, with a sense of purpose and an eye on the clock as Renee insisted they be home by 4:00 p.m. for a Christmas party with Terry, they continued toward their main destination, Seminary South Shopping Center. At around 12:00 p.m., Rachel pulled into the mall's Sears parking lot, maneuvering her car up to the top level. The 3 girls climbed out, disappearing into the sea of holiday shoppers. And then, they were gone. That was the last confirmed moment of their day. No security footage, no witnesses who saw them leave. No evidence of a struggle. Just an abandoned car in a parking lot, and the mystery that would haunt Fort Worth for decades to come. vanished without a trace. By 4:00 p.m., as the sun began to dip over Fort Worth, anticipation turned to unease. Rachel, Renee, and Julie had promised to be home by then. There was no sign of them. Minutes stretched into an hour, then another. Their families tried to reason with the silence. Maybe the mall was just crowded. Maybe they lost track of time. But as the clock ticked on, unease turned to full-blown fear. Something wasn't right. Their loved ones wasted no time. That evening, the families of all three girls rushed to Seminary South Shopping Center, their hearts pounding as they searched for any sign of them. And then they found it. Rachel's 1972 Oldsmobile 98 sat eerily still in the upper level Sears parking lot, exactly where she had left it hours earlier. Something was off. The car was locked, its interior undisturbed. Despite later rumors, the back seat wasn't filled with shopping bags. In fact, there was almost nothing inside. Just layaway items from earlier that day and a small wrapped present Renee had brought for Rachel's stepson, Sean. It was as if the girls had never returned to the vehicle. Panic surged. They weren't inside the mall. They weren't outside. They weren't anywhere. The families pleaded with store managers to page the girls over the intercom, their names echoing through the bustling corridors. Nothing. The police were called, arriving at the scene to search the mall and surrounding areas. Still, nothing. The only clues? Witnesses confirmed seeing the trio shopping earlier in the day. Their accounts seemed credible. One even correctly identified the phrase on Renee's shirt. The girls had been there, and then they were gone. No struggle, no screams, no clues. Just three young girls who walked into a shopping mall 2 days before Christmas and vanished into thin air. Up next, a baffling investigation and a mysterious letter. A baffling investigation and a mysterious letter. In the crucial first hours of a disappearance, every second counts. But instead of launching an urgent manhunt, Fort Worth police dismissed the case as a runaway situation. Three girls, one happily married with a stepson she adored, another deeply in love with her boyfriend, a 9-year-old child just days away from Christmas, had simply packed up and left. It was the easiest explanation, but it made no sense. Yet law enforcement clung to it, ignoring the glaring inconsistencies. Even as the girls' families pleaded for answers, officers seemed convinced the trio had left on their own free will. On Christmas Eve 1974, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram ran the first newspaper report about the missing girls. Where the article echoed police statements that there was no suspicion of foul play, it also acknowledged that none of the girls had ever run away before. Their families were adamant. This was out of character. Something was very wrong. Then something strange arrived in the mail. A letter from Rachel. That same morning, Rachel's husband Tommy received a letter. One that seemed at first glance to confirm the police theory. Scrawled in ink, it read, "I know I'm going to catch it, but we had to get away. We're going to Houston. See you in about a week. The car is in Sears' upper lot. Love, Rachel." A confession? A break in the case. If the girls had run away, here was the proof, or so it seemed. But as Tommy and Rachel's family studied the letter, Unease settled in. Something wasn't right. Several things were off about the letter. Rachel never called her husband Thomas. The letter was addressed to Thomas A. Trlica, a name she never used. To her, he was always Tommy. Number 2, a glaring mistake in the signature. The name was first written as Rachee, Rachee, before the final letter was awkwardly corrected to an L. Would Rachel really misspell her own name? Number 3, ink versus pencil. The letter was written in ink, but the envelope was addressed in pencil, an odd inconsistency. And number 4, strange postmark. The postmark had no city, only a smudged zip code, which investigators traced to either Elliottville or Weatherford, Texas. Rachel's family didn't buy it for a second. Neither did Renee's or Julie's. None of them believed the girls had run away. A lot of people may think they left with someone they knew. But I'll always think until the day I die that the girls were taken, Rachel's mother, Frances Langston, later said. Even FBI analysis of the letter failed to confirm or deny whether Rachel had actually written it. A chilling lead emerges. The families refused to let the case fade into a police file labeled runaways. They blanketed Fort Worth with missing person flyers, contacted every newspaper they could, and pushed to get their daughters' faces in front of as many people as possible. Then a tip came in. A young man who claimed to be a friend of Rachel stepped forward with a chilling detail. He'd seen the girls just before they vanished. They were inside the mall browsing the records section of a department store. He even spoke to Rachel. But the most unsettling part of his story, the girls weren't alone. Someone was with them. Who? A friend? A stranger? A captor? The police wasted precious time assuming the girls left willingly. Now with this lead, one thing was becoming clear. They never left the mall alone. Up next, a desperate search and a private eye's mysterious end. A desperate search and a private eye's mysterious end. The investigation had stalled, despite the family's insistence that Rachel, Renee, and Julie would never run away. The Fort Worth police refused to budge. They had their letter, supposedly written by Rachel, and that was enough for them. Case closed. But if the letter were real, why hadn't Rachel returned after a week, as she had supposedly promised? More than a week had passed. Months had passed. And still, nothing. Frustrated, desperate, and unwilling to let their daughters become a forgotten case, the families decided to take matters into their own hands. If the police wouldn't look for the girls, someone else would. Enter private investigator John Swaim. John Swaim wasn't just any investigator. A no-nonsense private detective, he took on the case with the urgency the authorities lacked. From the moment he stepped in, he worked tirelessly on behalf of the families, chasing every lead, no matter how bizarre or unsettling. One of the first big breaks came in April 1975. The tip led Swaim and a team of 100 volunteers to Port Lavaca, Texas, where rumors swirled that the girls had been murdered and dumped beneath a bridge. Armed with determination, They combed through the area, searching under every bridge, every hiding place, looking for any trace of the missing trio. They found nothing. Months later, in August 1975, another chilling lead surfaced. Swaim zeroed in on a 28-year-old Fort Worth man whose disturbing behavior raised serious red flags. This man worked for a local store, but instead of just selling goods, he spent his time harassing young women. His method? Calling teen girls who'd apply for jobs or being listed as references, whispering obscene and terrifying things over the phone. And Rachel, she had applied to work at his store. If that wasn't eerie enough, the same man had lived in Rachel's parents' neighborhood, right up until she married Tommy and moved out. Was it coincidence? Or something more sinister? Despite how unsettling the connection was, there was no concrete link between him and the disappearance. With no proof, Swaim had to let it go. Psychics, skeletons, and dead ends. By March 1976, the case had been cold for over a year when the families received another bizarre tip, this time from a psychic. According to the vision, the girls were buried near an oil well. A long shot, maybe, but with no better leads, the families had to try. A search was conducted near Rising Star, Texas, in the hopes that the mysterious tip might finally bring answers. Once again, nothing. Then, just months later, a discovery sent shockwaves through Texas. In Brazoria County, 1976, a group of oil drilling employees stumbled upon something horrifying. 3 human skeletons buried in a field. 3 skeletons near an oil site. It was the most promising lead yet. Could this be the girls? Could this be the break in the case? Hope surged, but when dental records were checked, the truth was crushing. The remains belonged to a teenage boy and 2 girls, but not Rachel, Renee, or Julie. Another dead end. The mysterious death of John Swaim. By 1979, after years of chasing ghosts, the private investigator leading the search for the Fort Worth trio was gone. John Swaim died suddenly of a drug overdose. His death ruled as suicide. And then, something even stranger happened. Before his death, Swaim had allegedly ordered all of his case files on the missing girls to be destroyed. Why? Did he know something he couldn't share? Was he silenced? Or was it simply the last act of a man who had spent years chasing a mystery that refused to be solved? Whatever the truth was, his death left the families alone once again. With no investigator, no solid leads, no help from the police, they were back where they started. Their daughters were still missing, and no one seemed to be looking for them. Up next, a case that refuses to be forgotten. A case that refuses to be forgotten. Years passed, but the shadow of the Fort Worth trio's disappearance never lifted. In the spring of 1981, hope flickered once again when human remains were discovered deep within a bog in Brazoria County, Texas. Could this finally be them? Could the families at last find the answers they had spent years chasing? But once again, the answer was no. The remains did not belong to Rachel, Renee, or Julie. Another false lead, another heartbreak, another dead end. But the families refused to give up. They pushed, pleaded, fought for decades, demanding that someone, anyone, take another look at the case. And finally, in 2001, they got their wish. The case officially reopened. After nearly 3 decades of silence, the Fort Worth Police Department officially reopened the investigation and assigned it to homicide detective Tom Botcher. Unlike the original investigators, Botcher didn't believe the girls simply ran away. Instead, he put forth a new theory, one that was far more chilling. We believe the girls willingly left the mall with someone they recognized, knew, or even trusted. We can say that they were at one point seen with one individual, but we believe there was more than one involved. For the first time in years, there was a shift, a hint that the truth was within reach. Yet despite renewed efforts, the mystery continued to taunt investigators. Leads trickled in over the years, but none brought them any closer to solving the case. Then in 2018, another glimmer of hope surfaced. Authorities retrieved 2 submerged vehicles from the murky depths of Benbrook Lake. Vehicles that at one point were rumored to be linked to the missing girls. And once again, the lead went nowhere. A new push for answers. By 2023, as the 50th anniversary of the girls' disappearance loomed, a coalition of organizations, including Clear Channel, the Texas Center for the Missing, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, launched a new initiative to shake loose fresh leads. They plastered billboards across North Texas, featuring age-progressed images of what Rachel, Renee, and Julie might look like today. For an entire month, the campaign flooded the public eye, reminding the world that these girls still mattered, that their families were still waiting, that someone, somewhere, still held the key to the truth. The 50-year mark approaches. On December 23rd, 2024, it was 50 years since 3 bright, carefree girls walked in the Seminary South shopping center and never walked out. 5 decades of silence. 5 decades of grief. 5 decades of unanswered questions. And still, the Fort Worth trio's families refused to give up. At this point, one thing is certain: they didn't run away. The truth is still out there, and someone knows it. If you have any information, even the smallest detail, that could help solve the case, contact the Fort Worth Police Cold Case Unit. It's been 50 plus years. It's time for answers. 50 years. That's how long the families of Rachel Trlica, Renee Wilson, and Julie Ann Moseley have waited for answers. 50 years of Christmases without their daughters, of birthdays uncelebrated, of silent, empty spaces where 3 young lives should have continued. What happened that day at Seminary South Shopping Center? Who was the person or people seen with the girls before they vanished? And what dark secret has kept the truth buried for half a century? Someone out there knows the answer. Maybe they carried the weight of it for years. Maybe they believe it's too late to come forward. It's never too late for justice. If you have any information, no matter how small, that could help solve this case, again, please contact the Fort Worth Police Cold Case Unit. Because these girls didn't run away, they were taken. Thank you for joining us in this episode of Ontario Cold Cases. Canada's True Crime Podcast. If you found this case as haunting as we did, be sure to subscribe and follow so you never miss an episode. We're available wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and more. And if you want to help keep cases like this in the public eye, consider leaving a review or sharing this episode with others. We'll be back next week with another cold case, another unsolved mystery, and another story that deserves to be told. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, the past is never truly buried. Someone somewhere always knows the truth.